Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Doris Mangrum, your host, and this is Education in Our Community. I am excited to have in the studio today a Bay Area activist, civil rights worker, leader, Mr. Norman K. Brown. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for being with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here.
I am so happy to have you, a pioneer in so many ways. I know that our viewers would be very interested in knowing a bit about your story and how you got here into this seat today, where you came from, a little bit of your background, and some of the things that you've done. So please share with us, sir.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I'm originally from Eatonville, Florida, Zora Hurston's hometown. Graduated from grammar school there. Had the pleasure of growing up in an all-black community. And I think one of the important things about my life is that until I was 15, I never dealt with any white authority figures. All the police, everybody who was in authority during the time from my birth to 15 years old were black. So I always knew that black people could do all of it.
Amazing, yes.
The doctor, the dentist, they were all black. The high school, the schools, all of them. So I moved to Rochester, New York in 1960. Went to Benjamin Franklin High School. And basically found out why segregation was so important. People didn't want us to know how bright we were in comparison to white kids. It was very interesting. I went to Benjamin Franklin High School, became vice president of the senior class and president of the student body. Wow. Well, while in Rochester, I found out some other things, Okay. Because I was the first time being in the North, there were no dances for black kids. So I established Friday night dances for black kids. Well, of course, we were all Negroes at that time. Right?
Yes. That was in the Negro moment.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Of course, we were satisfied with that, but we always knew that we were important and that we were special. So we always knew that. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's important about establishing those dances is that we never had any adult chaperones. Mm. We never required any. We knew how to take care of business, and everybody was invested in it. Mm-hmm. We had excellent attendance. The dances started in 1951, and they didn't end until the 1970s, well after I left Rochester.
Wow, wow.
And all of that time was at St. Simon's Episcopal Church, a black Episcopal church. Mm-hmm. Rochester, in spite of all of the history with Frederick Douglass and all of the rest of the rich history of Rochester, was very much, it's like we called it up south,
Up south.
Up
south.
south.
Never heard it said that way. I like that.
We moved from down south to up south.
South. Mm. Okay.
It was integrated in name, but we have very separate lives for the most part. I grew up in what we called a black, Italian, Jewish, Ukrainian community.
Okay.
Yes.
You said something when you opened your mouth that just caught my attention. You talked about Eatonville. Now, Eatonville was all black.
Right.
What does it look like today?
Eatonville is basically still all black. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, if you watch Channel 7 out of Orlando, Florida, it is actually located in Eatonville. They have a 99-year lease on the land, and it's actually, actually out of Eatonville, Florida. Okay. Eatonville is still basically an all-black town. They've integrated the police department and the fire department, and the schools are integrated. The schools integrated when the rest of the South integrated. We had excellent schools. There was no comparison. One of the things I found out in Rochester, there was no comparison to my education and the education
that you
of
received in Eatonville.
Yeah, there was no comparison.
Everyone cared about making sure that you got the best.
Oh yeah, and not only that, I went to a church where if you didn't get good grades, you had to sit on the mourner's bench, and who wanted that?
Nobody.
I don't know if people here know what the mourner's bench is, but if you got bad grades, you sit on it so everybody could pray for you.
Oh.
And then they assign you to the sister who was retired from school, and nobody wanted that. I mean, so we fought to have good grades, so.
Now, once you left down south, went up south to Rochester and did those amazing things, the school started, the school dances and all that you just shared, When did you make your way to, I don't know, what, is this going to be called the South too? The Bay Area?
Not quite. Well,
okay.
One of the things, let's just talk about the preparation for the things that I do now and the way I feel now.
All right.
So I had some excellent mentors.
Okay.
One that really stands out is Dr. Walter Cooper, who's still alive. He's in Rochester.
Excellent.
I met him when he was a 17-year-old going for his doctorate at the University of Rochester in chemistry. And one of the reasons, I have a degree in chemistry.
Oh, wow.
Even though when I left Rochester, I was working as a research technician in the lab.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to get a job out here. But Dr. Cooper exposed me to Swahili and to rich black history. And there's a group of us, young people, we were young at that time, who had never heard of the things that he was talking about. And he also inspired us in terms of education. We compared grades and we worked as a team. If you were strong in chemistry or strong in math, you had a responsibility for making the whole team and people in the community,
Yes.
So if they didn't, there was no excuse. We sat around the table. Of course, then you couldn't play bid whist like kids do in college now. But what we did, we sat around the table and talked about the lessons. And my background in terms of education, we read, I went to Rochester, Institute of Rochester Technology, and I went to University of Rochester.
Okay.
And as a freshman at the University of Rochester, I read Gulliver's Travels. Newsflash, I read Gulliver's Travels in the 7th grade in Edenville.
Wow.
I mean, so that kind of background, realized that, a lot of the things that we were being reintroduced to made me realize that there are a lot of advantages that we have and that we need to talk about that. One of the things I try to do all the time on my Facebook page is let people know that we have a very rich history and we need to stop talking ourselves down.
Absolutely.
We do too much of that.
Would you say that again?
We need to stop talking ourselves down.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
People say, well, we talk about black entrepreneurs. Remember this, even during slavery, people saved up enough money to buy their own freedom and did.
Yes,
So we've always been entrepreneur. We've always been creative.
Resourceful.
And resourceful.
Yes.
And we've always made it work.
Yes.
And we've always been about family. One of the things that really gets to me is this whole talk about family. If you want to increase the number of marriages, change the economy. Change the economy. You talk. If they say, the right wing says that that young people have a culture of not wanting to get married, nonsense. The question is whether or not you can afford to get married.
Get married, yes.
Whether my daughter and her boyfriend and their child, if that's the situation, can come live with me because they can't do it on their own.
Absolutely.
Because there are no jobs, and we need to talk about all of those kind of things.
Yes.
But my background, dealing with those kind of things, and when I moved out here, I wanted to get a job as a lab technician.
Okay.
That's how I got involved in politics.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't get a job. I had excellent background, had 5 years of history, 5 years of documented research in chemistry and medicine. Could not get a job as a lab technician because I had never taken a course in California history.
Oh my goodness. I can remember those days too, coming here from another state.
I can't see on camera what that made me feel. But anyway, I got busy. It took me 10 years to change the law. It was actually a law. I actually got it sponsored by Milton Marks, a Republican, and Willie Brown, a Democrat. And we got the bill passed that removed that from the requirement for professional licensing. It used to be, except for reciprocal cases in Nevada and a few other states. In order to get a professional license here or to transfer one, you had to take a course in California history.
That's correct.
And so, I got involved in that, and I got involved in the civil rights movement. There were so many things going on. I got involved in San Francisco Core with Oba Tishaka, who was Bill Bradley at the time. And we had campaigns, and the thing that's so beautiful about this, and my involvement, is always to work with people. I always try to work with people who are a lot brighter than me, because I want to bring whatever I bring to the situation. We had an excellent team of really bright men and women who set aside their egos and worked on projects.
What did it look like, Mr. Brown, in terms of when you say we set aside egos? and we worked on projects. We made things happen. How would an afternoon, let's just go back to an afternoon of your working together to strategize, I'm assuming, to get things ready for that movement that was going on.
Yeah.
What did it look like, the camaraderie that I'm assuming had to have happened for the great things that came out of that movement?
Well, a lot of times it started at a Sunday morning breakfast, which, would be sponsored by me and Kermit Scott. Peace and blessings be upon him. Many people who are listening to me might know him. And what we would do is we talk about the upcoming campaigns, like the campaign for Cadillac Row. I really got involved right after, during the time that they were doing the Sheraton Palace. We had some really terrific leaders, and like I said, we sat around and talk about the things. We talk about the problem first.
Okay.
And basically, it always led to no jobs. Cadillac Row was about the fact that black folks could buy Cadillacs, but they couldn't sell them. So we had to take on Cadillac
Change
Row.
that,
And
yes.
not on just Cadillac Row, but that was because it was the top.
Right.
We were actually taking on the whole industry, the whole, car industry, the automobile industry, and selling cars. So we broke that open so that black people were able, and other minorities.
Okay.
The thing that's not told and not understood and not appreciated sometimes is the fact that every time we had one of those kind of victories, it was not just a victory for us, it was a victory for other minorities and women.
Absolutely.
So when we had those kind of campaigns, we had a lot of participation. A lot of the team involved women, we had some Asians involved, and we had some Hispanics involved. So, and we had a lot of whites involved. So when you start talking about those campaigns, like for instance, the Bank of America campaign. The Bank of America campaign, when we took on in San Francisco Court took on the Bank of America and talked about jobs. Because at the time, when I came out here in 1960, there were no black tellers or Hispanic tellers in the Bank of America or any of the banks that were not owned by blacks or Hispanics.
Wow.
And in Chinatown, they had Chinese because there were very few whites who spoke Chinese. In the Mission area, Bank of America had tellers who were Anglo who spoke Spanish, but no Mexicans, and none of the people who were.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Brown. Now, you worked with CORE in San Francisco in the 60s when we know some serious stuff was going on in the South in terms of civil rights movement. Did you have any connection with the work that was being done in the South, or did you ever find yourself in the South, if you will, the real deep South, in terms of the civil rights movement?
Well, I went to Louisiana as part of a campaign. I was there for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But for the most part, I was in the Bay Area. But we were participants in the national campaign, working with NAACP, with SNCC, and CORE as a coalition, and working with a lot of ministers all across the board, and working with a lot of people,
Yeah, but one of the things I think happens when we talk about the civil rights movement, most people typically zero in on the South.
Right.
Because that's where you hear a lot of the things and the atrocities that happen. But there was stuff happening out here as well that was not pretty. And so you were at the core of that, I'm sure. Now, it sounds to me, as I'm listening to your story and as how it's unfolding, that you were probably pretty high level within the movement. Did you have ever the opportunity to interface with some of the people that we would know, in terms of, when I say we, everyone would be aware of, like your James Foreman, your Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson? Did you ever encounter those leaders in your work?
I met all of them.
Oh, wow.
Got to know all of them on a first-name basis, including Dr. King. And for the ones who are still alive, Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, and some of the others, still on a first-name basis. So it's beautiful in the fact that, I did as a local person, get to know all of them. I was also a professional photographer, so I had license to go into any meeting and talk to anybody, take pictures, and so I had a lot of fun doing that, and got to meet a lot of people, not only in civil rights, but in the entertainment world. Met most of the people, in the entertainment world,
The Harry Belafontes, the Aretha Franklins, they were in that movement, I can remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
Harry, I was one of the people who, I was a bagman.
Okay.
A person who would collect money to take to the attorneys to bail people out who got arrested.
Oh. Okay.
And some of the people who gave us money were Harry Belafonte, Sammy Davis Jr., Sidney Poitier. When I came to the Bay Area, not only did I want to be a chemist, I was also a trained cinematographer and photographer with good credentials, good background, a good portfolio. Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier arranged 5 very great interviews in Southern California. You know, they were very polite. They went very well. I never heard from them again.
It was all smooth until the day of the signing. It did not happen.
Right. Never heard. I came back to San Francisco and got involved in first trying to overturn that law that kept me from being a lab technician, because that was actually the thing that I made a living at. And I became a photographer and worked at the post office. You know, a lot of black people. Met a lot of law students, lawyers, doctors, and you know, everybody went through the post office, you know. So I worked at the post office.
This is so exciting. I feel like I'm sitting at your knee because of these rich, I mean, you're bringing to life things that I've read about, things that I know about, things that I've studied, but to hear, you know, you're a living, walking epistle. You're living, walking oral memory of these things. What would be one of the stories that stands out for you, one that you think our viewers might really love to hear, one personal little piece that you can share with us today that you think would be exciting for us to hear?
Well, I think, you know, my personal involvement with the civil rights movement, you know, as vice chairman of San Francisco Corps, I'm also an ordained minister, so I presided over the reassignment. There's a lot of confusion about the roles of white folks in the civil rights movement. Some pivotal pieces, I mean, very important parts. But as black people, as black consciousness started to rise, we really needed people to work in the white community. Everybody who, this is so right now, everybody who wants to work on the race problem, as we call it now, wants to deal with black behavior. Black behavior in no way impacts racism. Racism is here, you know, and if we all acted white, it wouldn't matter. Our skin would betray us.
It'll be brown, yeah.
You know, so the thing that I was talking about is that one of the pivotal moments, and a really soulful, tearful, but exciting moment, when I got to be the one who presided over the, not expulsion, but the reassignment of the white members of Corps. Reassignment to the white community. We literally had a prayer service where we hugged and cried, and a lot of people, they called it an expulsion, but it was not that. It was a reassignment, because we really need, and still need, white people who are willing to work in the white community.
Yes.
Because there are things that we can't do there,
that's true,
and shouldn't have to do there, that need to be done in order to solve the race problem as we know it today.
Absolutely.
See,
Absolutely.
I mean, we have a lot of work to do, and,
oh my goodness,
and we don't get credit for the work we do. Like people in the recent events, people have said, well, it's not execution by policemen that is important, it's execution by black thugs that are important. Both are important. And we spend a lot of time working on the black thug issue. We spend a lot of time working on that.
Wow.
And part of, you know, my involvement with Peacemakers, you know, to bring us up to this time.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about that. Thank you.
Involved with young people who are already in the juvenile system. You know, and the program that, and this is important because a lot of people, local people, will know John Ivey and Bronnie Hazelwood and Clarice Leroy, you know, Hank Roberts from Peacemakers, and some of the other people who are involved in this. You know, this program was very successful. We just ran out of money, you know, but.
How did you get started? Give us a little background. Take us back to what Peacemakers is. You know, you said that you got into it. This is kind of what led you there. Tell us what Peacemakers is for those who may not be familiar.
Peacemakers is an organization started by Hank Roberts. And he started out, he tells the story better, but I'll just tell part of it.
Okay.
He had a traffic violation and had to do community service.
Okay.
And among the choices of things that he could do was coach soccer, which he had never played, didn't know anything about, but he decided to do it.
Okay.
And as a result of that, became won the award for being the best soccer instructor in the Bay Area. You know, but that's part of Peacemaker's story, which he tells better.
Okay.
We have a documentary called Peacemakers that was done by Warren Davis, who is a young upcoming filmmaker. Okay. So, you know, that's part of that story. The program that we took to Peacemakers and got funded by the Alameda County Probation Department was called the Science Challenge. Okay. We started it over at Scotland and over in West Oakland in McClymonds. John Ivy, me and Hazelwood, you know, Bronny Hazelwood.
Okay.
Okay. And the program was written originally, it was started originally by my daughter in North Carolina. She's a marine biologist who graduated from Stanford. That's my middle daughter, Wanda. And what happened is that we were looking, I've always been interested in science. And, you know, it comes from time in Edenville when I actually got a chance to see Dr. Carver. Wow. So I wanted to be a scientist.
Wow.
And, you know, so there are a lot of things going on there. But one of the things in the science program, the idea was to integrate science into daily life. Like simple stuff, you know, like you should, and this is important for women especially, anything that's in an aspirator, that's a spray, you should never point at yourself, especially spray deodorants and things like that, because if you do that, you might as well put them directly on your lymph nodes because that's where they go. Things like that, you know, different science things. So we challenge young people.
And help people get inside of it and understand. Yeah. Just not sharing what you just shared, but then why?
Why?
Okay.
So we have them, you know, do the research on that. But one of the things that came out of what we do with the young people is our evaluation tool. Because you can't sit down and ask the youngster, you know, about their family life and stuff like that. So what we do is we have them write 3 paragraphs about themselves, and we have them read it to us.
Okay.
So in doing that, we can evaluate their writing.
Yes.
We can evaluate their ability to read. We've had young people stop in the middle of it and say, Brother Norman, I got to change this. This doesn't sound right. I said, okay, go ahead and change it. So when they start doing that and they get involved in it, and every event we expose them to things that they wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to. Take them to Marcus bookstores, take them to art galleries and different places where people are doing things, introduce them, but we have them write it up. So by the time they complete the program, they've got a little booklet of things that they've done and things that they've written up. And we do all of their grade point averages. We've never had anybody who graduated from our class that didn't improve their grade point average. We're not saying that they weren't bright. They were bright when they came to us. They were just disinterested.
So you changed lives.
Yeah.
And tell me, as I'm listening to you talk about this Peacemakers and how they came to you, how long did they stay with you? Was it a week, months, year? Or did it vary?
It depends. See, these are youngsters who are on probation already, who violate their probation and get assigned by the judge to our program. So it can be 30 days, it can be 90 days, it can be anything in between. It depends on what the judge says.
Got it, okay.
See, we have no control over that. But many of the youngsters will stay more than that time.
I can imagine some of them would not want to leave.
Yeah, because we make it fun for them.
Yes.
We make it fun, and we help them to develop an interest, you know. One of the things that we laugh about and talk about we have them say, okay, what was your beef? What did you do? Why did you get arrested? And after they talk it over, and we talk it over, say, okay, will you conclude with me that actually you're too stupid to be a criminal, and that you need to concentrate on the things that you're really bright in?
I like that a lot.
That you're really bright in, like your schoolwork. And all of them, we found that all of them were exceptional in terms of their ability to do the reading, the writing, and the math. They were just disinterested. And
you brought it to life.
Yeah, many of them, they were bored. They got in, stealing cars because they're bored. A lot of the missing ingredients, and also this is important, we had a stipend that was attached to the program. Young people need money. Young people require the same things that we require, clothing, food, and that stuff. So we need youth money. During the time I was at San Francisco, I was the manager of the citywide youth program for 18 years.
Wow.
During part of that time, particularly during the poverty program, which was destroyed by Ronald Reagan, but during that time, we could take during the summer, we could take anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 young people off the street and give them jobs in government agencies, and some private industries, hospitals,
wow.
and schools, and we could even pay them to go to school, to go to summer school.
Well, believe it or not, Mr. Brown, we're running out of time. I could talk to you forever and ever. Now, I heard you say at the gate that, and I say at the gate at the beginning when you began to talk about the peacemakers, that you no longer have funding.
Right.
Now, are you running even just a little bit of a program right now, or are you looking for funding, or are you, what's happening with it at this point?
The part of Peacemakers that deals with the grammar school is still going on.
Okay.
It's the part that deals with the probation.
Oh, I see. Now, is the part with the grammar school similar to the kinds of experiences that they had even with the probation piece, where you take them out and expose them to science and everyday life?
We can't do too much of that. What we do is basically we're in the school for support.
Okay.
And what we do is we bridge the gap between the school and the parents, and the goal is to keep them out of the juvenile system, and also in all of the schools that we work in, the expulsion rate goes down.
Wow.
Because we're able to mediate the situations that are, that go on in the school. Because the trigger is real quick on expelling youngsters from school, and we're trying to prevent that, and we do a lot of that.
This has been, I've just, like I said, I've learned so much hearing an insider. And as you talk about science and bringing, it's one of those things, we're talking about the STEM programs now, science, technology, and all of that. And so you have been doing this forever, and so it's great to have an icon like you in our midst. It's wonderful to know that programs such as the Peacemakers are aware and are available to our community. Is there, quickly, a short passing closing word that you'd like to say to get people involved and how they might help?
Well, everybody can get involved, In fact, if you are concerned about young people and you're not doing anything, I don't want to hear the complaints. And basically, my message for 2015 is that you are your child's master teacher. Do your job.
Wow. Those are some excellent parting words, viewers. If you're not part of the answer of changing it, then you can't criticize it. So you've heard from Mr. Norman K. Brown today what's important. He has given his entire life to giving back, been a part of it, being an activist, being a part of helping youth, being a part of helping our communities thrive. You too can do that as well. So I thank you again, Mr. Brown, for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the work that you have done, are doing, and I know are going to continue to do. And thank you so much for joining us here today on Education in Our Community. I am Doris Mangrum, and I thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.